the confidence that my actor workshops bring to people is phenomenal. People will often say, I've never felt like I fit in. Yet they do feel like they fit in with workshops. I didn't feel like I fitted in. My accent was different than everybody else's. Everyone was really quite posh. My kids have told me that it's inspiring. And in fact, my youngest has gone to university and she's studying TV and film. It was only really when I started going into the industry to try and find work that I found there was this divide. For me, that's what TV and film's all about, is allowing people to see themselves reflected.
Today I'm joined by Emma, an actor, founder and theatre programme director of Bthechange Theatre CIC, an organisation breaking down barriers to the acting industry by partnering with charities and supporting people from underrepresented and working class backgrounds. Emma shares her own journey from growing up in a single parent household and experiencing homelessness to entering the acting industry later in life and using her lived experience as strength rather than limitation. We explore class, authenticity, access, regional bias, and why creating your own work and staying connected to your roots can be the difference between surviving and thriving in the industry. Hello Emma, how are you doing? You all right? How was that?
Very well, very good, thank you. Yeah, that was great.
It's okay. All right. Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about what your role is and what you currently do? What I know I mentioned in the intro. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I work as a acting facilitator, and I also design acting sessions for actors. I'm an actor as well, and I founded last year Bthechange Theatre, where I produced, directed, and performed in my first play that I took 2 years to write. That was about homelessness, a true story actually, about a gentleman called John Priestley who was born in Rochdale, still lives in Rochdale, who experienced homelessness. And that was the catalyst really for creating Bthechange Theatre CIC, which I'm still building at the moment.
Okay, sounds like you're quite a busy person doing a lot of things.
Mm,
So yeah,
yes.
no, that's cool. Um, yeah, because this series is about those from working class and lower socioeconomic backgrounds. Um, what does working class mean to you? How would you define it?
Well, I was brought up in a single parent household, where basically my mum had to make ends meet in not a well-paid role, but it was a regular role. But
Mm.
it kind of working class for me meant that we were covering the bills and we
Mm.
didn't have extra money to go on lush holidays and things like that. So it was more of a kind of a survivor or a surviving life rather than a thriving
Yeah.
life. That's how I uh, imagine it to be. But also, working class to me means being resourceful, and finding ways to make things work, even when you don't have very much. Um, and it's about community.
Mm.
Um, Communities always come together in working class areas. And getting through things together. It's about working hard, showing up, and doing what's necessary. Um, so it's not just about money, but it's a whole way of growing up for me, coping and navigating the world from a working life or a working class perspective. Um, and it means having an awareness that you don't always fit into every other class system
Mm.
either. Um, Anything else? I mean, it basically influences how I build spaces today. So I'm proud of it.
Okay. Yeah. No, no, that's good explanation for how you define it. So yeah, as in my intro, and you've mentioned yourself that you grew up in a single parent household. and then you end up homeless at some point. Is that something you can talk about?
Yeah. So when I was 16, um, for various reasons, I wasn't able to live with my mum. So she said I needed to find somewhere else to live.
Mm.
And I ended up sleeping on a colleague's floor for 6 months, which wasn't great. Um, yeah, so I wanted to live with parents, and I reached out to my dad,
Mm.
but he's also was kind of like, well, if you've got somewhere at the moment, I don't think it's a good idea. My sister was newly married, so she didn't want me to live with her, and my brother was off down in London, training to be a police officer. So I didn't quite fit into anybody's world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I ended up yeah, sleeping on someone's floor.
What kind of made you get into the field that you're in now?
Um, I got into acting and particularly creative facilitation, which I do a lot of now, with my workshops, because I've seen how powerful and healing art is,
Mm.
especially for people that maybe haven't had access to the arts,
Yeah.
like myself. So I have some I can relate to that. Um, but I've always believed that creativity belongs to everybody, but it's not always easily accessed by everybody. Um, if you've not grown up in the right area with the right people, then opportunities aren't always accessible. But I'm driven by the idea that acting in creative spaces can give people confidence.
Yeah.
The confidence that my actor workshops bring to people is phenomenal. You see an actual change in them within
Mm.
4 weeks, which is incredible. I don't know very much else that can do that, be that impactful. Um, it also gives a sense of community as well, a sense of possibility that you might make it,
Mm.
or you might live out your dreams, whatever they are. Um, and I also got into it because it's transformative. Um, and it helps people that may have felt excluded in the world or never quite fit in. It's a common thing actually in the actor workshops that I do, where people will often say, I've never felt like I fit in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yet they do feel like they fit in with workshops and in the acting world. And it's really that keeps me in the field.
Yeah.
Um,
So, um, when you were going into the world of theatre and that acting world, was that something that you tried quite early on in life, or what was the journey there?
I did have a moment where I went to a local amateur dramatics theatre. I only went twice. Um, and again, it was because when I walked into the room, it was in a really wealthy area, and
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I fitted in. My accent was different than everybody else's. Everyone was really quite posh, um, and seemed to be very clever as well, and I didn't feel very clever. Um, In fact, there was a few moments where I felt really embarrassed, and I said, "I'm never going again."
Mm.
So that it was very short-lived because I didn't feel like I fitted in. Um, yeah.
So you had this experience when you're quite young, and then was it much later on in life that you decided, actually, I'm gonna try again going into acting then?
Yeah, I mean, when I had my children, I was doing any job that I could to help us get by at the time, and that was it. That was what life was to me. It was
Mm.
getting by and putting food on the table. Um, it wasn't till economically we got better, improved as years
Yeah.
went on, and the children got older. And it was actually when one of my children went to an acting class, um, and decided she didn't want to go anymore, that I then sought out the tutor and said, "Do you do an adult class?"
Yeah.
Because I'm fascinated by it, and also I'd spent a lot of time when my daughter would come out of the class, I'd be grilling her all the way back to the car. What did you do? What happened? And then what did you do? And so I don't know if she gave up because she was sick of that, or, or whether or it was that she just didn't feel that acting was for her. But either way, I felt, well, that money's going out of the bank anyway, so
Yeah.
I'll just replace her. And it's probably the first time I've did anything really for me, and
Yeah.
that's the thing that acting gives me. I feel like it's mine.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah.
Well, what was everyone's like reaction to it? Because obviously, if you're going into acting, how old were you when you kind of decided to get back into it?
I was 39.
39. And what
Yeah.
was everyone's reaction to that? Oh,
They just thought I was going to an acting class and that was it, until I then went in and did my first stage performance.
mm,
Um, Actually on the same stage that I'd went to see Annie when I was very young. I remember that was another moment where I saw these kids doing all this thing on stage, and I was like, "What, you can actually do that?" But never, like I say, for whatever reason, never went on to do it. I don't know if I had the confidence either. But later on in life, after I did my acting classes, I then ended up on the same stage, in Blackadder, playing two
mm.
roles, and that was amazing. Um, so I think I've lost track of what the question was there.
No, it was like
Did I
people.
answer it?
Yeah, well, it was more to do with what was the reaction from people.
Ah, that was the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's been really supportive, to be honest.
Mm,
I think everybody in the background is really kind of rooting for me to do with the things that I want to do.
yeah.
Because I do share it publicly on social media, and I'm a big believer in that's the way forward to getting yourself seen if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
not necessarily getting all these other opportunities that others might.
Mm.
So I'm never shy of telling people what I'm doing next. So yeah, people have been great. My husband's been really supportive. My kids have told me that it's inspiring. And in fact, my youngest has gone to university and she's studying TV and film. I'd like to think it has something to do with me,
Yeah.
but you never know.
In terms of going into the acting world at 39, was there any like type of like demographics, people from other classes that you would notice? Was there, because you often hear people that go into these industries are from middle to upper class. Was that something you ever noticed?
I didn't notice it in my actual acting class. It wasn't till I started trying to get into the industry that I
Mm.
noticed it a lot. Um, and I would study other people's spotlight profiles and see what they'd done, and if they'd been to university or drama school or whatever, I'd be like, "Oh, right, okay." And I'd look at their credits and see what they've
Mm.
done, and be like, "Oh, right, okay." And it's been a bit of a slog, to be honest. It's a slog and it's a grind.
Yeah.
And I do put that down to um, not having access to opportunities that others might, or to have gone to, or discovered myself young enough to go to drama. But I don't think I would have gone to drama school anyway if I was young enough, because I don't think we would have been able to afford it.
Mm.
So, looking back at that and seeing, I wonder if.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was only really when I started going into the industry to try and find work that I found there was this divide.
Yeah. Was it a lot harder then to get the roles, or was there anything
Still
specific to
is.
you that you kind of could bring differently to any other people?
Yeah, still is very
Yeah.
difficult, I think. I think the difficulty, the way I see it, is when I was younger and growing up, there was a lot of TV programs that were very working class based. They were
Mm.
very relatable. You saw yourself and your family on screen in a lot of the
Yeah.
programs. Don't really see that as much now.
Mm.
Um, and I think that if there are any opportunities for roles that are working class, they're not always filled by working class people.
Yeah.
Um, So there's a scarcity, there's a rarity of those roles, and then I don't believe that they're open to everybody.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I
Yeah,
think.
no, because like, yeah, it's kind of true. It's like, I think I've spoken to one of my previous guests where they talk about programs have been written by those who have lived through working class life. So when you hear the stories on screen, it's a bit more of a true reflection. Um,
Yeah,
have
and
you?
exactly, it needs to
Yeah.
be not only are people writing it, it needs to be reflected on the other side.
Mm.
Um, Definitely.
So, as an actor, do you ever kind of bring your lived experience to the roles that you do, or has a director ever said to you, "Yeah, you need to rein it in," or anything like that? Has anything like that ever happened?
Um, my lived experience. I think that's the beauty of being an actor that's lived a life.
Mm.
I take everything that's ever happened in my life into the roles that I do. Um, I think there's a little bit more patience. I think for example, when I was directing and producing the play, Domino, we had actors with lived experience of homelessness, but we also had other working class actors in that were
Mm.
also helping with the backstage and so on in other roles. And I feel that that sense of community was definitely there. There was no
Yeah.
hierarchy. There was no. Everyone was very kind and supportive. It was easy, to be honest. There was no egos.
Yeah, no, that's, I suppose that's the thing. If people are from working class backgrounds, they know how hard it is. And then when you've reached into these positions where actually you're doing something that you love,
Yeah,
that, yeah, obviously there wouldn't be any egos, but
but it's not just that, it's the
yeah.
confidence.
Mm.
People that have maybe been a bit more privileged in life, they bring a certain confidence that I don't think working class actors have. I
Mm.
think they're taught that they belong in those rooms. I don't
Yeah.
think working class actors do believe they belong in those rooms. And they do a lot of hard work behind the scenes in acting classes to build up their
Yeah.
confidence and to believe they belong in those rooms. So, with that play, for example, uh, there would needed to be a lot of kindness and positivity
Yeah.
and support to say you can do this and this. You deserve to be here,
Mm.
and you are the right people to be telling this story.
Do you ever feel like, because you are from working class, do you ever feel like the viewers can see that? Do you ever feel like, oh, they get a real sense, oh yeah, this person is portraying that life like legitimately?
I don't know because you'd have to ask somebody who watches has watched something that I play really to know that. I just know from my point of view how I access, you know, how I relate to a character is I access my own experiences.
Mm.
And that's really shapes the kind of roles that I want to play. I know people say beggars can't be choosers, but I am a chooser. I don't just
Yeah.
accept any role if I don't believe in it, if I don't feel that I can put an authentic voice to it.
Mm.
I don't go there. I think, well, that's just not for me.
So have you
Uh,
found yourself kind of veering towards roles that kind of mirror your life and your experiences then?
yeah, because when I
Yeah.
played the lead role that's doing the film festivals this year in
Mm.
perpetuity, I was playing a youth worker. I've
Mm.
worked as a youth worker. I felt the frustrations of a youth worker.
Yeah.
I also had an online Zoom call with the actual youth worker it was based on, and
Okay.
had intense discussions on youth work, and we related. I related to everything that she was saying and was able
Mm.
to, because it was a while since I'd done youth work, but it brought
Yeah.
all those emotions back up, which helped me incorporate that into the character in an authentic way.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, like if you've had those experiences and then you bring in that to the role, then I suppose, yeah, the viewer, yeah, they can really believe, okay, this is like the role that I can recognize this person as gone through,
Yeah,
or it's a true representation of that.
yeah, which is important, isn't it?
Mm,
Again, going back to what we were saying, that when people see actors playing a certain role, that it's relatable, but also, you know, they they're seeing it from an authentic point of view because that actor's bringing something true to that
yeah,
character and true to that scenario or that scene um or film
yeah.
if they're the lead.
And in terms of where you're acting, is the location, have you ever found that difficult, where you are, like, geographically?
Oh, do you know when everybody always says, "Oh, wherever they are is a problem," because there's
Mm,
always the jobs seem to be always somewhere else.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, a lot of the jobs are in cities. They're in London, they're in
Mm,
Manchester. And if you're not that close, a lot of the jobs are advertised also if you're within the M25, you've got to be London based. But you just got to navigate around that.
mm,
Um, and if you have a base, say you've got a base, and if you haven't got a base, work out if you get this role, how much is it paying, and can you pay yourself a hotel to stay there? Then you're based there, aren't you? So
mm.
there are ways around it. But this is the thing. I think sometimes you've got to be a little bit more savvy and think about
Yeah.
so that you're not being excluded because they're not always it's inclusive these castings.
Oh, okay.
I think that, sometimes because they're trying to budget, I understand it's a business.
Yeah.
They want to save money by not paying people's travel, but you then, centralizing roles to a certain area.
Mm,
But, living in areas that aren't cities as well is fruitful because you're living with real everyday people.
yeah.
So you're still living the experiences and the life for characters you can draw upon in the future. So it's not a terrible thing. But that's why self-taping is so wonderful.
Self-taping as in, like,
Yeah,
you,
self-tape
yeah,
auditions now.
auditions. Ah, okay. Because you mentioned earlier on about your accent. Um, have you ever been kind of typecast because of the accent and stuff like that? Has that ever played into
I'm always
anything?
typecast because of my
Yeah.
accent, and I play on it, to be
Mm,
honest, because I don't have to try very hard with it. Um, and I also want to play northern roles. I want to
mm.
represent the area. It's like a football team. If you want to go and play for a team that you've maybe watched all your life, you've got an affiliation with that team.
Yeah.
You want to make feel proud because you have an affiliation. It's the same thing. I want to represent where I'm from. And that's what made me also want to go into acting. It was seeing the likes of Maxine Peake in Silk,
Mm,
playing a barrister with a northern accent. She was asked to play it in a London accent, apparently, and she
mm.
said no, because don't you think barristers have northern accents?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's something I'm drawn towards, really.
Yeah.
But there is an assumption, I think, that if you've got a northern accent or you've got a regional accent, that you're not intelligent enough to be able to change your accent either.
Mm.
If you've got an RP accent, it's assumed you're so intelligent you can do any accent, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, actually, it can work the other way. It's not either or. Um, I think I answered that.
Yeah. No, no, it's yeah, no, it's fine. I think, because that's the thing in the past, like some of my other guests, they'll go the opposite way in terms of accent, where they've worked in companies and they'll tone down their accent purely to try and fit in because of
Yeah,
their working class roots. They're like, oh, I'm now in a professional environment, but you're using it to your advantage. Well, no, like I'm proud of my roots. I'm gonna
yeah. Not
really,
only am I proud of my roots, I want other people to be proud of the roots.
hmm,
You know, I think it's good to work on accents because it's part of your toolkit as an actor.
yeah, yeah,
But why shouldn't you go into an audition and if they've not specified an accent, speak in your own accent? Why have you got to think, oh, I need to do another one just so that they'll accept me? It's yeah, I think, even in my actor workshops and things like that, when I facilitate acting classes, I'm all about authenticity. People just
mm,
being who they are. They shouldn't have
mm,
to hide who they are.
Yeah.
It's the society that needs to adapt to us. It's not us that needs to adapt to society. But I do understand that it happens.
Yeah.
Um, it's natural.
Yeah.
Um, but it doesn't make it right, does it?
No, no, no. Yeah, so because you've now got into the acting world, have you felt like you've moved on from your working class roots? Because you have just mentioned like you keeping the accent and you're trying to fly the flag for the North, as it were. So do you feel like you've moved on, or you kind of stuck with your working class roots?
I've financially moved on,
Hmm.
but I can't hide away from my accent, and I'm not going to. Um, so it doesn't matter really how, financially my situation improves. That that's part of who I am.
Yeah.
It's what drew me to when I first watched A Taste of Honey, um, which is um, Sheila Delaney wrote that when she was 19. Salford girl, very unusual for her time to be writing plays like that, but
Hmm.
never apologised for who she was. Uh, and it's A Taste of Honey that I was like, the first time I saw that, I was like, what? And then there was Coronation Street, and I was like, what? Oh, great! You can speak like like this, and
Yeah.
and and have a place that relates to people. It's important. I mean, for me, that's
Yeah.
what TV and film's all about, is allowing people to see themselves reflected.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No. No. I completely agree with that.
probably why Coronation Street in EastEnders is doing so well still.
Yeah.
Maybe not as well as it was, but it's still there. It's still here, isn't it? People
Yeah.
still watch it religiously.
Yeah. Do you, do you ever feel like the stories are not quite in line with what's going on with the working class, or do you feel like it's still representative on those shows?
I think it shows modern society and what
Mm.
people think is important these days. Yeah. Um, because we have moved on, like in Coronation Street back in the day when they used to say, "Oh, what did she say? Oh, I don't know," and they say, "Don't you speak to my husband like that," because that's reflected probably what society was like at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the world's grown since then, so I understand why Coronation Street writers have gone into this new um, modern version
Mm.
because they've got a modern audience.
Yes, yeah, times just move and they have to adapt and
Yeah,
move with the times, don't they?
yeah.
If you could speak to your younger self that wanted to get into acting, is there anything that you would say differently? Because I suppose now that you're acting, you got into acting at 39, you've got all that life experience. If you were to go back to your younger self that wanted to get into theatre or acting, would you say anything different or do anything different?
What would I say? Yeah. I mean, it's what I say to people now, I think. Um, that they just need to stay true to themselves, but they
Mm.
also need to realize that if they want to make an impact in the industry, they've got to also adapt
Mm.
and create work themselves.
Yeah.
Just because the door isn't open to you doesn't mean it's not open. It is open, but you have to walk through it yourself and find a way to do it. That's why a lot of people who are working class actors end up writing and producing stuff on TV so they
Yeah.
can, and they will give themselves a role.
Mm.
Why? Because they're not getting access. So
Yeah.
create that access. People are doing it already. There are people that you can look up to that are already doing that. So yeah, there's opportunities for people as long as they take the bull by the horns, really.
Mm. So is that the kind of tips and advice you would say to like the younger generation or people wanting to get into acting now?
Yeah, I'd say don't let your class or your accent define you.
Mm.
Um, and if you recognise that maybe you've, when you've been to school, they're not, school isn't designed to create people with confidence and tell them they belong in these rooms. Maybe you've been to schools like that, doesn't mean you've got to still think like that. It's also about recognising that the power is within you, and it might not be easy, but it's also about making those connections and making those networks. And the good thing about writing things for yourself, or writing things that you're interested in, is you're also bringing these stories, these narratives to an audience somewhere,
Yeah.
and telling and bringing those right stories to the forefront. That's why I love the BFI, the BFI. I love BFI because it's all about that. It's all about voices, hearing voices, and that are not unheard.
Yeah.
Um, but connectivity is vital. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, you briefly touched upon like networking and connections. For those from like working class backgrounds, it's often quite hard for them to make those key connections.
Yeah.
What would you say is the best way for like an aspiring actor to form those connections?
Social media, as negative as it can be, is absolutely incredible as well,
Mm.
because there's no excuse to not be seen. But it's also about believing that you belong there as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Y- You know, you have something to say, and it's worth hearing. Um, so creating profiles and create and making work and delivering performances online, and you got that access that people didn't have once upon a time. You'd have to wait for someone to open that door for you, and
Mm.
it's not it's not as difficult, but you've just got to be brave and make those connections with other people that maybe feel the same, feel stunted creatively,
Yeah.
and collaborate. I collaborate, and I put out all the time that I'm open for collaboration, just to remind people that I'm there.
Mm.
And people respond. People want to collaborate. People want to also have their voices heard.
Yeah. So are you finding that it's becoming a lot more accessible for more people to break into the industry, or is it still quite notoriously hard?
It's funny, isn't it? Because the industry, we see it as, these big paid roles like TV and film,
Yeah.
but the industry's more than that now. There aren't the same parameters. The
Mm.
industry is what you make it. And that's why a lot of people, young people who've become influencers, have made the impact they've made, because they've never seen the boundaries.
Yeah.
They've never felt, oh, this is the route I've got to go in. So there are lots of different ways to get to your goal, and it's
Yeah.
not necessarily um, through a casting director's
Yeah.
door. It's not, and that's what I tell people in the acting classes that I teach on a Sunday in Southampton. I say to them, every opportunity is available to you. You've just got to find it and walk through the door. Social media is marvelous now.
Mm.
Um, so networking as well. People are always setting up acting related platforms and groups that you can join. Um, yeah, there's lots, and I actually love independent film, because I think it is a true representation. It's almost like independent film it's kind of sticking the fingers up to all those productions that don't champion your
Yeah.
everyday person.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're not going to make it. I will.
Yeah. No, it's good. Yeah, no, it's always good to have these independent programs. Like, yeah, it's just more real, isn't it? Like when you watch
Yeah.
it, and that's what you like to see. With Be the Change, could you tell us a little bit about that and the kind of stuff that you do and how involved it is?
Well, like I say, it's still a lot in development. It was basically developed in response to the play that I wrote, because when we put the performance on in Manchester, it got a really great response,
Mm.
and I recognised that, you know, a lot of playwrights probably write a play and then they go, "Oh, that was good," and then they go away and they write a different story. But instead of really focusing on the one you've just spent 2 years writing, and I think, you know, that that story deserves to be told in other places. So um, I realised for funding, particularly, you needed to be taken serious. You needed to be a company. You needed to be a
Mm.
theatre company. So that's why I set it up originally. But then, you know, it sparked other ideas about access and creating access for people with lived experience, so that they can do a theatre development programme where they can learn
Yeah.
how to be a theatre creator and put something on that reflects a story in their life that they want others to see. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. It's called You Are the Change programme. And the idea is that we'll have lots of professional facilitators come in, so
Okay.
and teach uh, uh, either immersive film in
Yeah.
theatre, or directing, or filming, or lighting, or
Yeah.
you know, whatever it is, in just one program, and then they get to put a piece on at the end of the week that they can share.
That sounds pretty cool. And that's
Yeah.
open to everyone. That's
It's aimed mainly at people that have lived experience or feeling of displacement. It could be people that are living in sheltered housing accommodation.
okay.
It could be someone that's moving around a lot, have lived in different sheltered accommodations, or um, because it's also, you know, I'm really mindful of the trauma side to it,
Mm.
and that
Yeah.
we really need to be mindful of that and make sure that um, every facilitator has some kind of understanding of facilitating workshops that are trauma aware, and trauma sensitive, because it's, you know, people that I'm probably focusing on um, have gone through trauma.
Yeah. No, it's good that you've been able to give a platform to allow people to kind of tell their story in a space that's safe for them.
Yeah.
So it's good that you're able to do that.
It could
Um,
also be, oh, sorry.
no, I was going to say, yeah, carry on.
It could also be that people have had lived experience and then gone in, and now they live in working class households.
Mm.
You know, it doesn't mean that they have to live in sheltered accommodation. It can be open to anybody that has had that experience.
Yeah,
So I'm building partnerships with organisations that have access to people like this,
yeah,
um, and charities in particular that work with people that have had lived experience of homelessness, and so on. So it's a lot of work, but
yeah,
I'm prepared for it. But again, it's going to be very fund independent.
yeah. No, it's good that you're doing it, and hopefully everything all works out well, and hopefully you get some good shows off the ground off the back of it.
Yeah, I'm also now thinking, you know, being open to people that have got plays that are representing, are a representation of a working class story,
Mm.
as well. Um, it can open doors in lots of. I've had people approach me. A lot of people approach me about that, saying
Mm.
they'd love to collaborate and work on um, getting their work off the ground. So it's this stuff that they've already worked on. But they're already identifying with me from my social media that I'm this person that is championing
Yeah.
working class people and people who are uh, marginalised in society. So that's good, because it
Mm.
means that, you know, my message is getting out, and that's how I can collaborate further.
No, that's cool. And yeah, just because we're coming towards the end, um,
Yeah.
do you have any tips, wise words, or anything for any aspiring actors from similar background to yourself?
Uh, I'd say connect with people that make you feel like they see you for who
Mm.
you are. reach out to mentors that maybe have had experiences in their lives that they've either come from a working class background, or, mentors that, again, will see you for who you are and not what you can bring them.
Yeah.
I would say that. Yeah, and just find your people. They're out there. If you go to working class, or if you go to acting classes that are in a local community, it's going to represent the people that are in that community.
Yeah.
And that are in your community. A lot of amateur dramatics as well is just made up of everyday normal people, lovely people that have lived really interesting lives. So, a lot of people go, amateur, but there's amazing actors in amateur dramatics. I don't think, there's a little bit of snobbery with amateur dramatics, and I don't think there should be, because it's still a place. It's still a place to play, isn't it? And experience, build your confidence, and it's always a good community, I find. I mean, amateur dramatics sometimes can be classed as cliquey.
Okay.
I've heard that a lot. I've experienced it a little bit, but that's only because people want to keep hold of
Yeah,
maybe
stick with
all
what they know.
what they've got. Yeah, but
Yeah.
eventually you can break that down.
Yeah. No, yeah. And if anyone wants to kind of check out your work or see your social media or anything like that, do you have any kind of like links or anything? I can put it in the description, but do you have any?
Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook as well.
Okay.
So I've got a link tree that I can give you with
Yeah.
all my links on it.
Yeah. I'll put that onto the description so people can connect, and yeah, hopefully everything works out really well with Bthechange, and thanks again
Thank you.
for being a guest.
No, thank you for showing an interest.
No, it's good. I think it's really interesting because out of all my guests, I've not had someone from an acting kind of background, so it's interesting to hear that world, and because I've talked about other creative industries and other professions, but yeah, it's interesting how that world, and it's like just gives people a bit of an insight into that world. So yeah, no, thank you for sharing and telling us your story.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed
Cool.
it.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Initial Step. If you resonate with the stories we share and have a similar background you'd like to talk about, we'd love to hear from you. Get in touch and maybe you'll be featured in an upcoming episode. And don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Be sure to check out our previous episodes for more inspiring stories. Until next time, I'll see you in the next one.